time for another reflection. It's been a while, and I think that's exactly why I wanted to sit down and record one of these again. A lot has happened in my life, which is also why I haven't really posted anything recently, and it's connected to a bunch of different things, but I just wanted to, I guess, come out here on a Sunday, which I usually don't do. It's quite a challenge because I love working or being busy, and I kind of challenge myself on Sundays to not do anything. But today is different because I've been not doing anything. It's now 3 p.m. and I just felt like recording something. And I know that this may not even be a backstory that's necessarily enticing or interesting, but I wanted to really just be in the present moment and share what I feel because it's an interesting progress that I see online with content heading in a very authentic way or in a very authentic direction, anyways. And it made me reflect upon my own content and my own mission. Because there's a lot of things happening in the background that I've been working on and that I will be working on and that I am working on. Yet, it's important to not forget the process in itself and the enjoyment of that. Today I had an idea, and it doesn't necessarily go in that direction, but today I had an idea of how much symbology actually controls our life, right? So if you were to wear a necklace with a symbol, how much influence does that actually have on your life? How much different would it be if you were to not wear that symbol? Let's say the flower of life as an example. If you wear a chain with the flower of life on for a couple of years, what difference does that chain make in your life? It's like a chain of events that happens afterwards. But I truly wonder that because, I mean, from a very logical perspective, some people may address the symbol that you have around that chain. Maybe also people that know what that symbol is, or people that want to just know what that symbol is about. So that already influences your life heavily because it attracts a certain type of people, or at least a certain type of question that leads to a certain type of conversation. Yet I wonder, even from a perspective that's not external, what does it do to you internally if you wear a symbol every single day? And I had the same thought when it comes to tattoos. I have many tattoos. I think I don't know. I kind of honestly stopped to count. Around 25, I think, of various different symbols of words, and I wonder what those do to me. Not only from a perspective of, okay, well, what is externally going to happen with other people addressing the some symbols I have on my body, but also what the wearing of these symbols on my skin does to my own being. And it's a very interesting philosophical question that is quite a conundrum. I mean, you can argue that it influences your life, you can also say that it doesn't do anything at all. Yet, personally, it seems that these symbols carry a lot of weight with them. As an example, I handmade my own jacket, which you've probably seen in some of my videos, where I drew a lot of different symbols on, be it the flower of life or the seven hermetic principles, various symbols. And not only do I feel magical when I wear this jacket, it gives me a feeling of inner wisdom, and it just makes me stronger in my being in a way, which is already a great benefit. It also makes me more conscious of the role that I have in society, and it gives me a purpose because I think it is part of the purpose why I'm here. That is already quite a lot. Yet I think that is, even though that is more internal, externally, of course, it also creates some reactions. And there's a great book by Carl Gustav Jung. I can pronounce him German, you know. Man and His Symbols. Amazing book. I can only recommend it. I've read it twice so far. And every time gives me a fresh perspective on the importance of symbology, not only in dreams, but what symbols can actually trigger in our subconscious minds. And I find that super interesting to go deeper in that and analyze, okay, what does that horse in my dream represent? What does that person in my dream represent? Today I dreamt of 3 wolves chasing me through a forest, and then them being chased away by an even bigger wolf. And I went to a place that felt familiar, and there was one of the smaller wolves was a puppy that came, and the big wolf, and then they started to play and cuddle with one another, and it turned very peaceful. An interesting aspect to this is that I've seen this scene in real life about a year ago, where a dog with the name Starwolf, who is sadly now passed on to a different realm, was playing with another dog, Mia, who is very small and white. And so, not only did Starwolf have the same pattern of fur than the wolf in my dream, the other puppy also was white. So it's interesting, and I wonder how these events interlink, even though there's a lot of time in between them, and what that symbology could necessarily mean to me. And of course, it's fascinating to hang up on these things, and I think a large part of the reason why I haven't really been posting anything was because I was living life. And life is pretty great. I love life right now. And I reflected upon many things, as well as my content, the message behind it, and reflection itself, that I started with such high promise. Yet I also do feel that these creative breaks are very necessary in order to find your creative style, to be kissed by the muse, whatever you want to call it, and how to get out of it necessarily. And it's such a fascinating process because there's also a lot of different symbols and events that occur in between that make you realize of certain things, whether it's you find a certain book at the right moment. Currently, a book by Rudolf Steiner fell into my hands, which is about the inner guidance of humans and mankind themselves, which is kind of going into this idea that there's a higher self within us that also acts sometimes from a superior position, making choices for us that we don't necessarily understand for what they actually represent in the moment. But if we look at them in retrospect, if we grow up and we look into these events again and see what they actually mean or meant, we can really see how they came from a higher perspective. And I find that super fascinating. What he really goes in depth about is the first 3 years of everyone's childhood. Because the earliest memories we all have, and I don't want to speak for everyone, so maybe there are a few people that have very dotted memories earlier than 4 years, but these first 3 years of childhood are spent subconsciously. Yet we learn a lot of things, how we move in this body, and how life kind of works from a very observer point of view by observing our parents or the humans that are close to us. He brings up a point of if a toddler would be, if there's a toddler and he's just brought to an abandoned island, and just him on that island. I mean, of course he'd be sad, but would he pick up language? Or is the influences that is made on the child of such an important character, yet the child doesn't necessarily have conscious control over it? Yet it seems to be a point where the subconscious mind is pulled by a higher force within the child to teach him the things that he needs to be taught. And it's a strange concept, and I wonder, even when it comes to humanity themselves, he goes on to say that, and I really love this example. I mean, it's a book based on lectures he did in Stockholm, I think. And it was for the Theosophic Society, so there was a certain base knowledge there for the people that were in the audience. But I digress. The point was to show what Jesus Christ as an archetype has done for humanity. And what was a really interesting case of events that lead up to one another is that Socrates famously said that he was following his daemon, where he had a voice inside of him telling him what he shall do. And that this idea, this Socratic idea that carried on for centuries, actually led to an easier implementation of Jesus Christ in Greece, which made him more popular. And it goes to show that sometimes these concepts or ideas that he called his daemon then turn to the Christ within a person themselves. And it's so interesting because all events really seem to lead up to another. Actions have consequences, and the way that we live our lives has an imprint on not just the humans that surround us, but the entire time, space, world in a way. And I'm truly a believer in destiny, or at least in a guidance by a higher force that takes us places. Because even right now in my life, I also moved to a new city now, and it's in a place that I never in my life could have seen myself living in. Not a year ago, not 6 months ago, never. Yet now I'm living here because of certain correlating events that have led me to me living here. And it's so fascinating to really listen to that inner guidance that you do have and follow those steps. And sometimes you do these things and you're not even realizing that you're actually really doing these steps for yourself. And I find that fascinating. And again, to come back to symbology, I think that these symbols, these symbolic messages that we see in our outer world and we can interpret in our inner world can be such a powerful way to guide us there, and sometimes these symbols are just screaming for our attention, whilst other times they're a little bit more shallow. The other day, to share a very personal story, but I think especially talking about this, it's very, very, very interesting. I did a cacao ceremony, as it is tradition with my hometown friendship group, who are all very different characters. I love the dynamic so much, to really, and I'm really grateful to have also spent these times where I wasn't really posting anything with them largely, and my family, because it gives you a sense of home that I haven't quite felt in a long time. But anyways, so we did this cacao ceremony because one of the mothers of the friend group is a shaman. So she led us through this ceremony, and we also did a shamanic journey with her, where she was drumming and leading us on a quest to see what our 2024 would look like. Now, even though, the real new year isn't the 1st of January, let's just go with it for the symbology that it represents, because I think that in the end is more important than the actual date. Although that, not to go into that, but you know what I'm saying. It's the conscious field is also somehow accepted that this is just the calendus, as the Romans called it, where the new calendar year is introduced. So it still holds value as itself and should still be celebrated. Not should be, up to you. Anyways, so we were led on this shamanic journey, and in it, it was very interesting for me because she first told us to see a door, and then we walked through to see, okay, what can we expect from 2024? And I had a falcon guide me through a very luscious garden, and later I flew on that falcon to Atlantis, or at least an island in the middle of the ocean. In there, inside of a volcano, I was waiting to see the ghost of my 2024, which was a dragon. And it was a very, very wise dragon. Yet in the visions after, first of all, I saw gold, which is very commonly associated with dragons, that they guard the gold. and secondly, that I kill the dragon, which is a very powerful theme in European mythology. And me, as an interested individual into all types of mythologies, I found it super interesting, and I really got this feeling during the journey that the dragon wants to be killed. And I found that fascinating because I never really thought about it that way, that the dragon sees the bigger picture. The dragon sees that the hero needs to kill the dragon in order to evolve as a human. And this does really feel like what 2024 holds in store for me. Um, but this symbology in itself was very, very rich, and I was very touched by it. So then the week after was my birthday, the 6th of January, the day of the three magi, which is also a very special day that I really enjoy. But and I decided to go for a weekend retreat in the Harz, which is a very lovely mountain range here in Germany, also very filled with numerous mythological themes and ideas. And there we went on a hike. And on the way to the hike, on the way up the mountain, there was a small little alberg, like a hostel. And a guy was sitting on the balcony, and he screamed at us like, "Oh, you guys are going hiking, couldn't be me, would not be me, but enjoy." So then, we laughed a bit, we continued up our path, and about an hour and a half later, we meet him again while hiking. It was a very epic scene. There was fog everywhere. The sky was very gray, but the trees, because there's a lot of pine trees, are very, very green. And there were waterfalls and a dam. And we met on that dam, which is interesting, the dam between, the water and earth, which is very symbolical for that transition. And I guess the period between the spiritual and the material. And so we have a little conversation. We laugh like, "Hey, what are you doing here? You said you don't like hiking." And we have some small talk, and he says he's from the small town that I just moved to, the town that I'm in right now. And that alone is already quite fascinating, but because it's quite some distance between this town and the Harz. But he wore a black hoodie with a dragon in the middle and the word destiny over the dragon. And I was just like, whoa. I mean, the synchronicities of all that happening. And then, of course, as hometown friends tend to be, at least mine, because I was flabbergasted. I was like, whoa, this is insane. This is really, really insane. He smoked a cigarette, so like he turned a cigarette on, and we went our separate ways. And I told them all about it, like, yo, this is so crazy. Look at the symbology of this and that. And I guess this was the right step to go move to this town, which I really, really feel. This is the step. This is the place where I'm supposed to be right now. Yet, what was so funny about it is that he was smoking a cigarette, and I told them again that story, and my friends were laughing like, "Oh yeah, look, you gotta kill him because he's already smoking. See, he wants to be killed." Very dark joke, but just wanted to also include it because I think it's also hilarious in its own ways. I of course didn't kill him. I don't know, making it say that is even stranger. I think it's kind of obvious that I didn't, but it was even funnier in the moment, and it gave this symbology also a very fun undertone. And I think that's very, very important when we deal with these very deep and profound and philosophical concepts, to not lose ourselves in it and laugh about it. It's the archetype of the fool and the wise man, right? That I want to incorporate and embody more and more and more. Because this human experience and this experience on Earth is very deep and profound, and at the same time very funny. And I think seeing it this way, seeing the value and the humor that this world has to offer us, is some of the real teaching that also keeps us sane, or at least I think it can help to keep us sane. The absurdity of it all. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of it. That's what I wanted to just quickly say. I know this is not perhaps the longest episode of reflection, And yet, for the first time, it is indoor with decent audio quality, right? So that's a step up. And yeah, so I just wanted to say that I'm alive, I'm well. You continue to see my face in one way or another. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of your support, and thoughts. I'm very grateful for all of this, and I'm grateful for life, and see where that leads us to, you know. Remember, as above, so below, and listen to your heart and that inner voice that's trying to guide you to the place that you actually want to go to. Much love.